This is an I Dream of Words short. Today we're going to be talking about an English idiom. Piece of cake. When something is a piece of cake, it's easy. It could be work that is simple to get done, or it could be a task that is not worth worrying about, because it will be easily ignored or dismissed. It might even be a person who is easily convinced. Let's take a look at an example. Hey, I'm really worried about that exam next week. Don't sweat it. It'll be a piece of cake. You sure? I've got 10 chapters left to study. Just chill. I saw last year's exam paper, and the questions are so simple you could just guess. It's all common sense. Wow, maybe I'll skip the studying and we can go out for dessert. Now that's a piece of cake I wouldn't mind eating. In this example, A is worried about something being difficult, and B reassures them that it will be easy using the expression that it's a piece of cake. Having mentioned tasty desserts in an idiom, A is reminded that they'd like to get something to eat, and B makes a joke about wanting some cake too. There are a few pieces that help to explain this idiom. One is about the history of sweet things in the English language culture, another about social class, privilege, and poverty, a third about cake itself, and a fourth about effort, or the lack of effort that is desirable in Western culture. Humans have an interesting relationship with sweet things. Don't have enough sugar and you'll die. Have too much sugar and you'll become overweight and suffer all the negative consequences, both social and medical. Balance is important. But the history of sweet food in English-speaking places is one of indulgence. The more sweet things you could have, the better. This is a pretty simple explanation for the stereotype of English speakers being fat and having rotten teeth. Today, it has become a pretty clear explanation for the overwhelming obesity in the West, a culture so focused on eating cake and candies that it sacrificed its health to do it. There are many English idioms based on eating sweet-tasting things, and a lot of English folk tales involve cake. Of course, all cultures have tasty, sweet things. Expressions like piece of cake demonstrate a lack of moderation, though, even if it's not understood to imply that in modern speech. The second part of this, which is far more important to the birth of the expression, is about class, privilege, and money. Most people throughout history in English-speaking countries were poor, extremely poor, especially in what is now the United Kingdom and Ireland. Stories of fictional characters like Robin Hood, who stole from the rich and gave money to the starving poor, are incredibly common, and they are barely countable. If you were poor, you might have had enough money to pay for the ingredients for bread. The expression daily bread is so common in English, it even became part of the most frequently recited prayer in all Western culture. Having enough for cake, though, would have been extremely rare. Families might have saved whatever extra they could for months or even years to make a single cake to celebrate a birth or success, perhaps a wedding or a big sale of their garden's produce. Cake has little nutritional value, much like bread, but uses a lot of supplies to produce it. If you could afford cake enough to be familiar with it on a regular basis, you were probably rich, and being rich was a desirable state. Having cake every day, that was a symbol of having an easy life. A piece of cake, then, was all about things going according to your particular desire. The third reason for this is actually found in the cake. It is soft, fluffy, easy to eat. Unlike traditional bread, which is usually heavy and dense to provide better nutritional value and keep people going through a hard day of work, cake wasn't food as much as enjoyment. It's light and inconsequential, much like the things that are described today as pieces of cake. They're of no significance, no difficulty, and can be done easily. The last reason that can easily come to mind is about effort. In Western cultures, particularly English-speaking ones, effort is a dirty word, an idiom meaning that it's something that people don't like talking about. If you have to work hard, you have a right to complain about it. If you have ever spent time in an English-speaking country, you will likely have experienced this, that regular work is something people try to avoid, and generally spend a huge amount of their time whining and complaining about. That's not to say people in English-speaking countries don't work hard. Many do, and many have left behind the idea of work being something you should avoid. Especially in North America, the idea of hard work has become something of a moral duty, and working hard is now seen as a positive thing by many parts of society. The United States and Canada have what might be seen as a work ethic, a social responsibility to work, that comes from settling a harsh territory in the fairly recent past, only the last few hundred years. In European English-speaking territories, however, that shift has never happened, and hard work is seen as something only the lowest class of society should have to do, usually immigrants and non-whites, historically slaves. There is a story about the French Revolution, where Marie Antoinette is told that the peasants outside the palace are angry because they don't have any bread to eat, and she asks why they're complaining, when they can just eat cake instead. This social division that is so aggressive that people in different groups can't understand the desires and needs of others is a clear demonstration of the culture that gave birth to an expression like this. A piece of cake is a clear symbol of privilege and a desire not to have to work. to live a life where cake is common and work is rare. So when someone asks about a task you think is going to be simple, you can accurately describe it in English. It's a piece of cake. Perhaps it will encourage you to treat yourself to a nice dessert. Thanks for taking the time to join me here today for an I Dream of Words short. See you next time.